to the Projection Podcast. I'm Hector Flores, and today we got a living legend in Ruben Felix. Ruben, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for showing up and coming, man. I'm excited to talk a little bit about baseball. Anytime I get to talk baseball with someone, I feel like I can talk to them all day. So we'll see how this goes. But Ruben, I'm gonna just kind of off broad. You played a little bit of baseball. You know, you played professional baseball. You're in you're part of the El Paso Baseball Hall of Fame as well. Your coaching career, you've been a coach at the collegiate and the professional level. You were a part of the staff for the World Baseball Classic, you know, so you were a part of, you know, that team that had a lot of living legends still, like Derek Jeter, and I want to say, was CC Sabathia on that team as well?
No, some of the superstars on that team was Jeter, Jimmy Rollins, Dustin Pedroia. So those are some of the big guys on the team.
And as well, that to add to that resume, you've scouted and you discovered guys like Alex Bregman and Alex Verdugo, Chad Bettis, guys like that. So let's get into it, man. I know you got quite a good resume put ahead of you, but kind of just growing up, man. Tell us a little bit about how baseball played a part in your role. You know, growing up, did you play right when you were 4 or 5 years old, or did you kind of get into it a little late?
Yeah, so I got my baseball, the love of baseball through my father. My father was a really good baseball player, and you know, my dad's name's Laudo, and when he was fresh out of the service, he got drafted, and when the draft was for Vietnam, he got drafted at a young age, and he always played baseball. My dad he lived in Mexico when he was young, and he came over to the States when he was like in 5th grade. And when he came over to El Paso and he started living in El Paso, he started playing baseball. So we got our love of baseball through my dad, because my dad used to play, you know, Southern League baseball, fast pitch softball.
Yeah.
And he played, you know, slow pitch with the baseball guys. If there wasn't a baseball tournament, they would play slow pitch and fast pitch softball. So we got our love from him, and we grew up around it. My dad, you know, played 3-4 times a week all year long, and you know, he passed that passion on to both me and my brothers.
Okay, so during that time, did you play Little League? Because there was no select baseball back in the day.
Yeah,
right?
so here's the crazy story: is that we actually never played t-ball. Like I grew up in El Paso, and they didn't have any t-ball leagues in my neighborhood. So the first year you could play baseball was actually when you were 8. And me and my twin brother had signed up, you know, to play in the local Little League, and my dad was all excited, all this stuff. And we wound up not playing our first year because we had catechism classes, and my mom was like very strict and said, we're not going to play baseball until we finish our catechism classes. So our first year we didn't play Little League baseball till the following year when we were 9, and we had already done our catechism classes.
Man, it's crazy to say that, because now it feels like if you start at 9, like a lot of people will say, well, man, you're behind. Like,
yeah,
what's the problem? Why isn't he playing when he's, you know, t-ball when you're 4 or 5?
Oh yeah.
Right? Because I can only imagine someone starting at 8 or 9 years old and trying to go through the process at that young age. So going through, you started late in your career, obviously playing in a team sport. Did you as a high school, what high school did you go to out there in El Paso?
I went to Socorro High School in El Paso. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Taking a quick break. Want to know how to support our show? Go down below and like and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Back to the show.
And there, did you start as a freshman on varsity?
My brother and I both started. Our freshman year we were on the JV, and our sophomore year is when, you know, my brother got called up to the varsity, and the head coach, you know, he talked to both of us and asked us what our opinion would be on playing varsity, and I chose to stay down just because I was not going to be an everyday guy in center field for the varsity, and my dad thought it was a great idea for me to stay down. So my brother went up, and he was a shortstop in pro ball in college, and he played third base as a sophomore. But he went up there and did a good job, started for him. So I didn't go up till the following year. And, you know, then from there, you know, once we got to be juniors, we're pretty much, you know, pretty good. We knew we were pretty good ball players because we had, scouts coming around and scouts calling the house and college coaches calling the house. So, but it was a good program. Socorro's High School's always been known for baseball in El Paso, and they won a state championship in 2008, I believe, in the 5A here in Texas. So they've always had really good baseball out that way.
Yeah, and the reason I bring up, if you started as a freshman, because a lot of people think, I didn't make varsity my freshman, sophomore year, my life's over. And no, that's not the case. You still have time to develop. Bodies mature at different paces of a childhood. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring that question up. So going through this process as a junior, was that when the letters and the calls from colleges started coming around?
Yeah. So when we were right off the get-go in high school, my dad used to take us a lot to minor league camps. Like there in El Paso, they used to be a AA, now they're AAA. We used to go to these camps, and both there in El Paso and in Juarez, Mexico, we used to go to camps, and we get to take ground balls, hit and stuff with all the guys, pro guys, and that's when my dad really got a good idea that we're really special ball players. Because some of those guys and coaches used to tell him, like, hey, man, these guys are pretty blessed, and you need to keep them on pace to do what they need to do. And so that's when we kind of knew our freshman year, we started going to, tryout camps. When major league teams would come around El Paso, my dad would purposely take us to the tryouts. Even though we were young, we would go just so the scouts could see us. And once the scouts realized, like, okay, these guys are pretty good, that's when they start coming around and watching us play. And even though we're little guys, we're tiny in high school. We're 5'9", 140 pounds. We were pretty blessed with our talent. So that's when we kind of got the itch for the next level. I think we had it in our mind our whole life because we were around my dad and we go to minor league games, and that's what we wanted to do since we were really young kids, is be professional baseball players.
So did you feel like during that time in high school, because there's a big difference, right? You like baseball or you love baseball.
Yes.
And I think for you to be really committed in the game of baseball, you have to love it and not really like it. So do you feel like you loved it during that junior, senior year, or did you feel like you loved it right from the start?
Yeah, we loved it since we could think about baseball. Like I said, my dad played a ton, and I still have, memories of when we were really young, like super young, like 3 or 4, when my dad would come home from tournaments, because we were too young for him to take us, but he'd come home from tournaments and we'd have his jersey on and we'd be walking around with one of his bats in the house, and he'd come in the house and we'd go in the backyard, he'd throw to us and stuff like that. But we loved it right off the get-go. If there was a game on TV, which back then there was not a whole lot of games on cable or anything like that, we were sitting there glued to the TV, and when we go to minor league games, that's what we wanted to do. My dad would ask us, would you love to do this one day? He goes, absolutely. And we'd go early to games and get autographs in the bullpen from the guys, or go down on the side of the field and just, sit there and maybe take a picture with the player, or a foul ball would get hit. We'd run under the bleachers at El Paso Diablos Stadium and go get a ball. But I believe that, and my brother says the same thing, that we were meant to play baseball. And even though we didn't play organized baseball till we were 9 years old, we were already playing sandlot baseballs. At 4 or 5, we were outside playing baseball all day long. If it was baseball season, we were playing baseball. If it was basketball season, we'd play basketball. If it was football season, then we'd be playing football out in the street. So we were just athletic, but our first love was baseball because of my dad.
So going through the process now, right? We're talking about high school and transitioning to college, right? You're getting these letters, you're getting these calls. At that age, you don't know too many about, the recruiting process, right? Because anybody who's never gone through it, they don't know how it is. So can you talk a little bit about maybe who first called and what school you ended up going to out of high school, and how that process from high school to college, signing your letter of intent and going through things of that nature, was new for you? Because obviously it's new for anybody going through that.
Yeah. So being raised in a Hispanic household, the education piece was something that was, for my family, was not something that my parents did. My parents were, my dad, didn't finish high school because of a family situation he had with my grandfather was an alcoholic. So my dad had to work when he was young. He worked at a pool hall racking balls when he was 10 years old. And luckily, you know, he wound up getting a GED, went off to the Army. And once he got out of the Army, he got his license to be an auto mechanic. And my mom went to high school, graduated, and worked for the state of Texas as a mental health therapist.
Okay.
And wound up getting a real estate license. So our parents had some education, but not any college education. So when we were young, my parents were more about trying to just live and get by and do what they needed to do to put food on the table for us. So the education piece, we were new to all that. We were new to, you know, having core classes and prepping for the SAT and the PSAT and all that good stuff. So when we started getting letters from these big schools and calls from Texas and Arizona, all these people were saying, hey, what's your SAT score? And we almost held the phone like, what is it, SAT?
Right, yeah.
And so my mom, being the educated person, the highest educated person in the family, she looked into it and she realized that this was a college entrance exam. And she wound up going to a bookstore. I think it was like Barnes & Noble, one of those school stores back then. And she bought a SAT book, which was about 1,000 pages thick. And we started going through that to see, you know, how to prepare to take this SAT score, because all the big Division I schools were asking about, you know, what's your SAT score? And we're like, well, we haven't taken it. We don't know anything about it. So that's when we kind of knew, like, okay, we're behind the ball a little bit with this prepping for college and SAT score and all this stuff. So we prepped. We took the exam, both me and my brother, and coaches kept calling the house. It's like, hey, what's your SAT score? You need a 900 to get into Texas. And we're like, oh, we're at 680. And we're like, oh, we got some ways to go, guys. And, you know, those conversations started making us understand that we needed to get our stuff together in the classroom. Not that we were bad students, we just weren't educated in preparing to get to the next level. And that's one thing I pass that information on now to my son, now that's 15, that he needs to prep now. As a freshman last year, we had already started thinking about all this prep, being ready for the PSAT and all that good stuff once he gets a chance to take that.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because I kind of went through the same process. I didn't know what was going on, but my parents, they speak very minimal English, so I was in there trying to figure everything on my own. And there's a lot of people that go through that process, you know. So it's important to educate what you're signing up for.
Of course.
So going through that, what school did you end up going to out of high school?
Both me and my brother, like I said, we had a ton of attention from scouts and college coaches, and we knew that the SAT score was not going to be good enough to get into a big Power 5 school. And our dream school was Texas and Arizona. That was one of the two schools that we really wanted to go to. And we just didn't have the SAT score to get in. So we started thinking about junior college, because the Major League Scouts, started giving us advice to say, hey, you're just going to have to go to a good junior college program and you're in the right state. So Wayne Graham at San Jack was recruiting us, and then Frank Anderson at Howard, which now he's the pitching coach for Tennessee. He was the assistant coach at Howard back then, and we had gone to Cincinnati Reds camp. Les Hauser was a scout out of Albuquerque, and he called the house and said, hey, I want you guys to come, you know, to the Cincinnati to our tryout this weekend, and I'm going to have a few college guys. They're going to come watch you guys. So I know you're probably going to have to go to junior college, so I want you to come to the workout so I could see you guys more before the draft, and then so these guys can maybe meet you and get to know you. So me and my brother wound up going to Howard there at that Cincinnati Reds tryout. Frank Anderson took us aside, and my dad, I think, was at the tryout, and he talked to us about, like, hey, we'd love for these guys to come visit Howard and Big Spring. And I think the tryout was on a Saturday, and we wound up we drove over there Sunday night, and we visited the school on Monday. And later that week, we're supposed to go to San Jack, but Frank Anderson didn't let us get away from Howard without signing our scholarship on the spot, because he knew we were going to San Jack to visit. And he said, no, you guys ain't leaving this office until you sign these scholarships, because we really want you. So me and my brother looked at each other and said, you know what, let's do it. It's just 4 hours away from home. And my dad actually, he didn't go on the recruiting trip with us. He gave us the keys to his car. We got in the car, drove to Big Spring from El Paso with another friend. And he said, the decision's yours. You guys go visit the school and see what you think. You guys are going to be 18 now and make an adult decision. And if you want to be there, then go ahead and sign. And we did.
Wow. So he kind of gave you the keys and just do what you got to do.
Yep. And to this day, it's a funny story. So Frank Anderson, we're still good friends. You know, he calls me about players all the time because, you know, now I'm scouting with my own business and then for USA Baseball.
Right.
And just the other day, like a month ago, my dad passed away, and he was one of the coaches that reached out and was, you know, he said, hey, I'm really sorry about your dad. And so we were texting back and forth, and he said, hey, I still remember, you know, the car that your dad sent you to Howard in. And it was, you know, just a 1976 Malibu. We rode up in the middle of the night to the hotel, and he showed up and he goes, man, is this your car? And I was like, yeah, this is my dad's car. He said, man, he made it all the way. I said, yeah, it's got a good engine. My dad's a mechanic. And he kind of giggled and goes, wow. And he was texting, you know, saying he still remembered that blue Malibu we rolled up in.
Wow.
Back in that day, which was a long time ago.
Yeah, those are memories you don't forget, man, going through those. So,
Projection Podcast is brought to you by Icebox Cryotherapy, located in La Cantera. You can reach them at 210-757-3660. Premier Cryotherapy Studio specializing in athletic recovery, pain management, health and wellness, and beauty. Book now.
going through that, I know you went to quite a few different schools. Can you explain kind of the transfer process back in the day?
Well, I mean, it hasn't changed much, believe it or not. The only thing now is that COVID has actually taken that rule away from the transfer. Before, a few years ago, in baseball, especially if you transferred to another Division I school, you'd have to sit out like football. Mm-hmm. And right before COVID, they actually were already thinking about changing the rule. And once COVID hit, they changed the rule completely where now you could just transfer. So now that's why this transfer portal is out of control.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, back then you could transfer from a junior college to university with no problem, just like you can now. But back then, if you transferred from a 4-year Division I school to another 4-year Division I school, you had to sit out. So for me, I'm not a fan of the transferring just because you're not teaching your kid to stay committed to what they committed to and following through with their word and the university's word. Mm-hmm. So for me, when it gets tough, I think as a human being, you know, you should find a way to stick it out and make the best of it. And I think right now the travel ball has really diluted all that mindset. And when people don't get what they want now, the parents grab their kid and go to another organization, and then they're not happy there and they jump over to another organization. So I think that rolls over into the college lifestyle and the college baseball and athletics. And I think it's something that needs to be a stop to it, because right now on the portal, I think there's over 1,000 kids on the transfer portal.
I think at one point if I'm not mistaken, there was over 3,000 at one time.
Oh yeah.
At one point, which is insane.
It is.
And a lot of players, they didn't get to go back to that program because nobody picked them up.
Oh yeah.
So their careers were over.
Yep.
Instead of going back and trying to work it out, they got in the portal, and reality hit. And now, oh wow, we're starting school in a week, and nobody's called me.
Yep. And that to me is crazy because, especially with COVID, the rosters are very full, and you're trying to get on the portal. Well, yeah, if you get on the portal and you were lights out wherever you were at, you might have a chance to go to another program and somebody give you an opportunity and give you a scholarship. But if you're just an okay player and you were on big money, maybe 50, 60, 70%, there's no way another good program is going to give you that, because they're taking a chance on a person that really didn't have numbers. And that's all it is. These college guys are using, you know, analytics and the number game now with these transfers. So the top tier of those transfer portal guys, they're going to get an opportunity. But those guys that are maybe a good player, but not with big time stats at a big time program, they're sitting at home right now, or they had to
left behind.
sit out or go to a smaller school and a program that maybe is not even Division I. So that's why a lot of these people don't think that how it's going to affect their career. And if you make the wrong move on the transfer portal, you might be stuck going somewhere where for the program's not very good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a tough decision, especially I don't know how it's going to play out for the future, but it's interesting to know, you know, especially with these players, college players going through that process. It's reality, right? So now moving forward, you played your collegiate baseball. Can you talk about professional baseball, that transition for you from being a college baseball player and now, because you signed a free agent contract. You didn't get drafted, but you signed a free agent contract. Can you talk about that transition and how you went about it with, obviously it's a different mindset, right? Because now you're getting paid to play baseball.
For me, you know, always the goal was to get drafted. I believe I was good enough to get drafted out of high school, and the scouts, you know, just didn't think that we had the strength to play professional baseball at that time, because me and my brother, we were players of the year in El Paso in high school, and we were really good, but we just weren't strong enough for professional baseball, in their opinion. So I understood that out of high school, that I had to get stronger, faster if I could. So one thing I really did a whole lot is during college, I really dedicated myself to the weight room. On game days, I would go in the weight room after games and work out. One of my idols growing up was Nolan Ryan, and Nolan Ryan was notorious for working out after pitching or playing in a game. Pitching, obviously, because he was a pitcher. So for me, my strength came with my dedication in college. So my goal was obviously getting drafted. I hurt my elbow twice in college. So for me, that really set me back, but it didn't affect the dedication I had to the game. So I just had to find a different way into professional baseball, because I hurt my arm. To this day, I still remember April 3rd against Texas A&M. I started against them in a 3-game series, and I hurt my arm in the 4th inning, April 3rd, and I was out for 5 months. So when I hurt my arm, I realized, like, okay, the draft's in June. I'm not going to be ready for the draft. So now what's plan B and to get into professional baseball? So plan B was rehab, get back on the horse, and keep trying. And so I started, you know, sending letters out again and calling major league teams that were interested in me before. And in the fall, they started inviting me to close tryouts. I went to a few tryouts in Houston. I came here to Austin. So I tried out maybe for like 3 or 4 different teams: Braves, Expos,
the Expos,
Royals. I can't remember who the other team was, but they came in and worked about 4 or 5 guys, and you know, I had done well, and it was just more of a wait till the start of spring training to see where we're at. And I wound up, you know, signing at a local high school. We used to work out at. Mark Grzelanek is a good buddy of mine, and he used to work out at a local high school when he was start playing in the big leagues in El Paso. He grew up in El Paso, and he had a scout that he knew from independent ball, Mark Wazinger, and he actually told him about me, and so I went and threw a bullpen for Mark. And at the time, Mark was a manager for Corpus Christi for the Barracudas, and he worked me out. I threw a bullpen, and he signed me in the parking lot out of the trunk of his Explorer. He pulled out a contract and said, "Hey, I'd love to sign you, but you need to sign with me right now, because if you keep going to these tryouts, somebody's going to sign you because you got a live arm, you're left-handed, you got a good future in the game, but I want to make sure I can get you today." And he pulled out the contract. Contract was like $900 a month. And but he did promise a host family, so that kind of helped with my living situation. So I signed with them and went to Corpus, had a really good year there, and made the All-Star team in the league and as a rookie, and wound up playing winter ball. And Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers bought my contract, and from there, that's how I got on with Milwaukee, which is kind of a blessing in disguise. How I went through pro ball. I always tell people I went the long way around to get into professional baseball, but just like anything, you got to have plan A, B, and C just in case things don't pan out the way you planned them to do.
So the pro ball stage, when did coaching play an effect? Did you start coaching right after you were done playing?
Well, coaching was always in my mind the whole time because obviously baseball leaves you at some point. Most of us get told or you have to walk away from the game at some point. So coaching, it was always in the back of my mind to coach collegiate baseball or professional baseball. So for me, I wound up in winter ball in Mexico. I played down there for 4 seasons. In my 4th season of playing winter ball, I actually broke my ankle and my foot. And I was out for 5 months with a broken foot and a broken ankle. And that's when I started really going like, wow, okay, maybe it's time to get into coaching. And at the time I was dating my wife, which was my girlfriend back then. I came back from winter ball to Lubbock. And when I was in Lubbock, Coach Anderson was now the pitching coach at Texas Tech. And I enrolled in school because I was out for 5 months. I enrolled at Texas Tech, and I said, you know what? I need to finish my degree. Okay. Because my career might be over, or I might come back from this injury, and I might not be ready. So that's how I got into coaching. Texas Tech offered me a job while I was finishing my degree. And that next summer, I actually played 1 more year of pro ball there with the independent team of Lubbock, and my body just wasn't the same. My leg was not at 100%. Excuse me. And that's how I got into coaching. Texas Tech, I kept that job there, and then I wound up finishing my degree, and that's how I started coaching.
So, and you've coached one of the, obviously the best players in the world. How was that transition from coaching at a college program to coaching guys like, you know, like the Jeters and the Longorias and guys like that? Because obviously, I mean, those guys are obviously getting paid a lot of money to play baseball. Yeah. You know, it's obviously a different approach, a different coaching lifestyle, right? It has to be.
Yeah. So luckily for me, I've always been a humble person, just by the way I was raised. My parents, you know, always taught us to be humble people. And in high school, when we realized that we were really good baseball players, my dad would constantly say, but remember, you're better than everybody else, but don't act like you're better than anybody else. Respect everyone. Be a good teammate. Be a blessing to others. So I've always lived by that. So when I did get a chance to become a Major League Baseball coach with the Indians in 2004, the first day I got to spring training, Omar Vizquel was still with the Indians, and Eddie Murray was our hitting coach. And here I am in spring training with Cleveland, and I'm a young guy at the time. I was 33. And I said, well, what am I going to do? I said, am I going to be a humble guy? Am I going to be a coach that stays quiet at this level? Am I going to be a guy that does both? Am I going to be humble and be a student of the game? And am I going to be a hard worker? And I said, well, I'm just going to be who I am, because that's always who I've been, is a hard worker and try to overachieve because nothing's ever been handed to me. So the first day, you know, I met those guys, I realized like, wow, these guys are humble people. Like Eddie Murray right off the bat greeted me really well in the clubhouse and went out to the field, and he explained different things to me, how practice works, how batting practice works, this and that, and introduced me to some of the guys. And right off the get-go, he threw me in the fire. He goes, hey, Felix, come here. You're going to throw the first group. I was like, okay. So I was like, I got excited. And when I looked to see who the first group was, I was like, wow. I was throwing to Omar Vizquel, Travis Hafner, Grady Sizemore, and Coco Crisp, I think, was in that group. I was like, wow. I get to throw to big league guys, and I get to throw to Omar Vizquel, was the first guy I threw batting practice to. So when I threw to him and he was hitting line drives off me all over the field, I knew I belonged. Like, I knew I at that moment, I go, wow, this is pretty humbling. This is really cool that I'm throwing to the best, one of the best shortstop of all time, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best players of all time is hitting Scud missiles off me in batting practice. And I said, that's really cool. So when I walked off the field after that first group, he thanked me. He goes, hey, man, you throw some great batting practice. And I'm like, wow. The Omar Vizquel just said that to me, some little guy just from the east side of El Paso. And I go, this is pretty cool. In my mind, I was saying that's pretty cool. And when I got back to the hotel, my wife was there, and she goes, how'd it go? I said, man, that was awesome. I want to do that for the rest of my life if I can. But it was a blessing. It was really cool.
And you did get the opportunity to be around many, many baseball players. And I think that's why, for me, and to have you in my corner, man, it's a blessing to be able to pick up the phone and call you and be like, hey, what do you think about this player? Because I know you've seen many caliber of baseball players from the youth, from the high school transition, from guys that are in pro ball and guys that are trying to make a major league club. You've witnessed it and you've seen it. So going off of that topic, as far as the scouting, right? You coached and obviously you scouted many, many players. Can you talk about just ways like the Verdugos and the Bregman? How did those how did that scouting process work? Did someone give you a call and be like, hey, Ruben, I got this kid I need you to come see? Or can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Alex Bregman because till this day he's a good friend of mine, and I met him a long time ago. In 2010, I was actually scouting for USA Baseball, and I was part of a national team, 14 and under. We were going to Nicaragua with the Alex Verdugo group. So with Alex, he actually came to a camp that we had in Arizona right before the USA Cup. It's a long, like a 6-7 day tournament that the USA Baseball has in Arizona to find kids for the youth program. And Alex had actually come to a free camp that we had with USA. And he was only one of like 35 kids that showed up. It was a free camp, and Alex showed up. And when they started playing catch, when they were stretching, I always pay attention just even to the stretch. I'm looking for an athletic guy. I'm looking for a kid that's actually doing the stretch the way it's supposed to be and not just going through the motions. And he was a kid that was, you could tell he was locked into what he was doing, and he was doing it at 100% effort. And I noticed, I'm like, okay, this guy's very athletic. He's flexible. He's agile. Once he started playing catch, his arm was clean. He had good action in his arm, good feet, a smile on his face. Like, you could just tell he loved baseball. And I go, wow, I like that kid. In my mind, I was like, man, I already like this kid right off the get-go. We haven't really done much. So once he got into my group at the time, I was helping the infielders. And we're just rolling balls to him and stuff like that. And once I saw his hands and how his feet worked, I was like, man, this guy's special. This guy's special. And I told our manager at the time, was Eric Keebler. He's a legendary coach in Arizona, high school coach. And I told Eric, I said, hey, you see that curly hair kid from Albuquerque? He's had an Albuquerque baseball shirt on. I said, you see that kid? The little one? I go, yeah. I said, he was a tiny guy. He wasn't very big. And he goes, man, he is pretty dang good. So once I got Eric to take a peek and the other coaches started talking about him while they went through the different stations, we just go, man, we need to watch this guy this whole week. And we wound up befriending him at lunchtime. He was sitting by himself. He had made himself his own sack lunch. And we called him over, and we were small talking to him and asking him where he was from. And he goes, oh, I'm from Albuquerque, and I played for the Albuquerque Baseball Academy, and my coach is Ryan Brewer. And it turns out that guy I played with that guy in pro ball, Ryan Brewer.
Okay.
And so after that, it was just his career just took off. We wound up following him that week through the tournament in Arizona. We followed all his games that he played in. There's it's like a group of like 50 scouts that watch this whole tournament, from the 5 guys going on the national team, which I was part of. And then the rest of the guys are kind of just like guys that are giving their opinion of guys. And when all the scouts went and watched this guy, they said, man, he's special. Like, he's special. We need to try to get him on a national team. And out of 1,100 players that week, we picked 11 guys, and he was one of the 11. And he went to, with that team, we went to, I didn't go because I wound up, took a job at UCF. So I couldn't go to Mexico City with the team, but I helped build the team. And they wound up going to Mexico City, and Alex was the MVP in Mexico for the World Cup. And I think he was, sound outrageous bad never. I think he was like 17 for like 23 in the tournament. And after that, like the guy just took off. Like he had everybody you can think of calling his house, from, you know, Scott Boras, all these big time guys at 15, because they knew he was going to be a special guy and a big leaguer someday. But that's what caught my eye about him, just the way he went about his business, how professional he was as a 14, 15-year-old, and how he was playing baseball, you know, and going through the baseball through his day. Like he was doing everything to a T, and everything was clean, and everything. He looked sharp. Like he looked like a big leaguer at 14 years old.
14. So the scout that you are, right? The many players that you've kind of discovered and been a part of, can you, and obviously scouts look for potential, right? Even at the college level, these kids are, you know, 14, 15, 16. They want to know what they're going to be at when they're 18, 19, right? It's the same thing for a big league team, right? When they're going to that scouting, it's potential. Can you physically go to a field and look at a kid and say, hey, this guy's going to have some potential one day and he's pretty much going to be in that pool of guys that has a shot? Or can you go to a youth game and be an 11-year-old and be like, hey, that kid probably is not going to get it done? Because the good ones, right, the good scouts, they know baseball. They see action. They see fundamentals. They see how their parents are, because parents play a big role in this too, right?
Of course.
Because in the game of baseball, it's a mental game, right? It's you teach failure. You teach how to handle failure. So can you just touch base on when you go to a baseball field and you're trying to discover the next baseball player, because it's a fun process, right? You want to see how these guys start and where they end up, right? Can you talk a little bit about just kind of going through that phase and really discovering potential? Like, this guy has a lot of potential.
So for me now, with USA Baseball, I'm the lead scout in South Central Texas. So I'm the guy in charge of this whole area. So, for example, I'm in charge of the 11U through the 16U to find the better kids. So if I go, for example, and I do this, you know, right now I'm doing this. So if I go to a ball game and I spot a kid, I size him up off the bus, as old school scouts would say. So I size him up. Does he look like a baseball player? Does he look good in a uniform? Does he look athletic? Does he move athletically? Does he have a good idea of how to be a good baseball player? So when I'm watching kids, even if they're 11 or 12, if they move right and they're athletic and can play baseball, I'm going to stay on them. I'm going to stay on them and watch them and see how they play the baseball game. Because a lot of guys will have tools at that age, but not a lot of those kids can translate the tools into a game situation. So, for example, this summer, we had the second round of regionals for USA for the 11s, 12s, and 13s, I think, in Houston. So I was at that camp, you know, trying to pick guys and this and that. And one kid that stood out to me, and I compared him to a young Robin Yount, like a lanky, loose, athletic kid, right? So right off the get-go, the one thing that caught my eye about him is like when he threw the baseball from right field, he threw the third a couple times, threw the home. But when he threw, his arm action was clean, looked like an adult arm, had backspin on the ball, and he had accuracy and velocity. And when he went to approach the baseball, he knew how to do it. So at 11 or 12, if he's already doing it that well at 11 and 12, you can count that at 14, 15, that's even going to be better. At 16, 17, 18, it should be even better. If the kid stays humble, if he keeps working hard, and if he keeps surrounding himself with good baseball people. And right now, that's one of the biggest problems is a lot of those type of kids that are 11, 12, 13 and are really good, but they're not on a good team where there's somebody that's played the game at a high level and teaching them high level stuff, those kids kind of flatten out once they get to 14, 15, 16.
Right.
And the other kids that are in a good organization where there's development going on and people telling them the right things, those kids are the ones that take a drastic step and become prospects. And that kid just stays where he's at because he didn't surround himself with the right people.
Yeah.
And that's where, as a parent now of a 15-year-old, I purposely do that to my son. I purposely moved to Smith and Valley area on purpose because I wanted my son to be part of a good baseball program in this area when I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful as a parent to do that, because if you do that, you're going to put them in a position where they can get more out of their career than the average guy.
And I totally agree, because I've witnessed it, and I've seen a lot of parents, kind of go through the hype process, right? I said, these kids are 10, 11 years old. They have a lot to grow. They have a lot to learn, right? Yes. And I've seen, it's sad to say, but I've seen a lot of poor coaching. And for me, it's, if you see that poor coaching, you're ruining a kid's opportunity to be great. If the kid has talent,
of course, and
you teach that talent the right way, like you're saying, it can go beyond baseball. Like the things that can happen for that kid is on another level.
Oh yeah.
So it's understanding for the viewers that are watching. It's important for these parents to know, who are you trusting during your kid's process?
Yes.
Because it can mean everything.
Yes. And it's crazy. We're even talking about that. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday about this kid that was on my team before, and me as a coach, if you ask me to give you an evaluation of yourself as a ball player, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because I have nothing to gain out of telling you the truth. Yeah. But you have everything to gain by hearing the truth. And I say that all the time. And I'm a big fan of Joe Madden. I think he's one of the best managers of all time. And Joe Madden has a saying. He says, you might not like me today, but you'll respect me tomorrow. And I believe that, because you might not like what I tell you on paper today, but tomorrow you're going to respect me because I told you the truth. And in professional baseball, I learned that a long time ago as a professional athlete, that the best policy is to be honest.
Yep.
And if somebody's honest with you, then that's going to help you. But if somebody sugarcoats something, you'll never find out the truth soon enough. Sometimes it's too late.
Too late, yep.
Yeah. And I went through that with a kid here recently. Sat him down, let him know, like, hey, this is where you're at. This is where you need to be. This is what you need to work on. And the kid left my team. Instead of going, wow, here's a former professional athlete. Here's a person that coached in the Power 5 at big-time programs, coached in the big leagues, has a lot of great experience around the best players in the country, around the world, really, because we play against other countries with USA. As a parent, I would have said, man, thank you so much. We needed to hear that.
Exactly.
My son needed to hear that. So now he can either choose to work on those things and be better and stay in the same environment where he's learning what he needs to learn to grow. But now you've taken him away from that environment, and you've dummied down, right? You've dummied down. You've gone to a program that's a weaker program so your kid can have better success. That's not going to make your kid better, because you were in a tough environment. He was learning how to handle it and learning how to fail and work from that. That's what's going to make him better. And I experienced that as a player myself, because my brother and I, when my dad played and when we got to be 14, 15 years old, my dad used to make us play on his men's team. We were playing against grown men, 30, 35-year-old guys on purpose. My dad had a method to the madness. And that experience, when we first did it, it was not fun. It was not fun to go from being the great player and now you're just a below average player because you're playing adults and you're getting dominated. But guess what? We learned to handle the situation. We learned to play in that environment, and we learned to be successful in an uncomfortable situation. And I look at it as a big league guy. When guys get to the big leagues, it's really hard. That's why a lot of guys don't stay in the big leagues too long. It's really hard to get there, but it's even harder to stay up there. So that's how I look at amateur sports and amateur baseball and softball, because I help softball girls too, is that if you can keep your kid focused on what the process is, where we're going to be at the end, and not so much where we're at now, then that's going to help your kid be better. But if you take them away from that and take little Johnny to another team because, they play local tournaments and they play a bunch of rec ball level type of kids, that's not going to work. I'm talking from experience from me doing it, and now as a coach, I do it with my team I coach here locally. I've taken them out of that situation, and I've put them this summer. We played in a bunch of tough tournaments on purpose against elite competition, national level teams in Houston, Dallas, Alex Bregman World Series, perfect game over here in Houston. Yep. And I purposely put them in those tournaments so my kids and my parents can realize, okay, the baseball we're seeing in front of us is not realistic baseball. Baseball in these bigger cities where there's better baseball, that's what's going to give you the opportunity to succeed and fail. And the college guys and major league scouts are going to grade you against that kind of competition.
I agree.
And they saw these parents like, man, because we played recently in a tournament. It wasn't very good. And the parents like, man, there's a big difference. I was like, I've been saying that all along, guys. Yeah. I've been saying that all along. Well,
I think that's why you're good at what you do, because you're real and honest. And in your job and in my job, you have to be real and honest. Whether you're going to break someone's heart, you're actually going to do them a favor.
Yes.
Right? And I've seen it a lot where parents think they have this kid that's God's gift to earth, but in reality, there's people and there's players that are in Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic that are getting it done and nobody knows about them. But someday they will.
Yep.
Right? So I think for the baseball community, these parents need to get educated and know who's in front of them, who's teaching them, who's coaching them.
Yep.
What is their weakness? Because a lot of times you hear good, but you never hear the bad. Why? Well, what's wrong with this picture? Right? I want to tell you the bad. If I'm not telling you the good, you're doing a good job. But I want to tell you what's bad. Because even at me, I'll still get calls and, hey, what he's seeing in this kid? Well, I'm going to tell you the bad first, right? Because that's the number one thing you got to work on. And as you and I know, that's huge in baseball because everybody has a weakness.
Of course.
I can go and you can go and watch a kid hit, and you're doing a front toss drill, and the ball's getting in that kid's loop, and the parents be like, wow, this guy's squaring it up. I'm like, yeah, well, he's throwing it into his loop every single time. It's just an example. It's like things like that these parents need to get educated on. And it goes a long way.
Yep.
And
it's crazy how the travel ball, and the thing is, I say that to people all the time. The travel ball coach, for the most part, has good intentions, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, too, if you're relying on somebody that's living, whether it's they're making a living off of you paying them per month or whatever it is, if you're asking them for their opinion of your kid, and the only opinion you're getting from them is Johnny's a really good player and he's great, but you never hear, okay, this is where you're at, this is where you need to be, if this is where you want to go. If you never hear that, then the red flag has to come up, because now you're doing your kid you're not doing your kid a favor or helping them at all if you're in that situation. And I see that all the time. I see it all the time. And as a college coach, I always tell organizations or people I go speak or whatever, when they ask me, it doesn't matter what the logo on the front of your shirt says. It's about the ability that you have behind that shirt.
Exactly.
And I found some of my best college baseball players and some of my best college softball players off teams that aren't very good, but had good coaching. Mm-hmm. They might not have the best players on the team, but they had really good coaching. For example, I had a softball girl that was on a team out of Louisiana Voodoo. Okay, they're just an okay organization, but their coach was a Division One baseball player. That guy coached them up, developed them. And that kid wound up being a superstar at the Division I level. And the reason why she became that, not because she played for us, because she was prepared by the right person when she was young for 7 or 8 years. And that prepared her by the time she got to campus. Mm-hmm. And baseball, I've had several guys the same way that didn't play for a high caliber organization or, this big national level organization. Like the people think that if you don't play for a national level type of organization that's well known, that you're not going to be a great player. That's not right. Mm-hmm. If you put yourself in front of the right person, the right organization that's teaching you to play the game right, and your kid's very committed to being better, mm-hmm. they're going to be better. But that's the problem now. People are going for the logo and not for what's behind the logo. Who's behind the logo? Mm-hmm. Who is that person that's putting everyday thoughts, examples, and a practice plan behind your child? And if you have that wrong person behind that logo, you're in trouble. Your kid's mm-hmm. going to stalemate.
Yep.
I see it all the time. And it's sad, but that's a reality that we live in. And we live in this society that the instant gratification and what's in it for me. No, it's about you have a gift. What are you doing with your gift? And part of your gift is trying to help others and be a good teammate. And if you're that person that you're only worried about your kid and who's watching your kid and this and that, then a college guy doesn't want your guy. Yeah. A college coach doesn't want your kid. College coaches don't want selfish kids. They don't want selfish parents. They want a humble kid, a kid that's raised the right way, a kid that's a good ball player, and the parents that are just as humble as the kid. And it comes from home. You recruit the kid, you recruit the parent. That's a big saying in collegiate sports. You recruit the kid, you recruit the parent. So as a college coach, when I was out there recruiting, even now, I'm looking at the parent. And I've had that issue just this past weekend with a parent, where he's sitting there chirping and telling the kid what to do. I said, that's not going to work on my team. It's not going to work. It's just, that's not how you do it. If your kid is relying on you on Saturday and Sunday to learn how to play baseball, or for you to teach them how to play baseball from the stands, your kid's in trouble.
There's a problem.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Well, it goes back to, peaking. You see these kids and they peak at 13 years old and they're like, wow, this kid's really good. And like, well, no, he's not. He hasn't learned anything. He's peaking at 13 because he's stronger than everybody else and he's quicker, waiting until everybody matures. And I try to give that advice. It's when you peak and then you peak again because you know the game and you know what you got to work on and you've been around people that know baseball. It's like you start peaking, 3, 4, 5 times, and those are the guys who make it. The kids who just peak one time at 13 or 12 or 11, and they don't learn anything after that, they can't peak again. So it's like, who are you putting yourself in front of, right? So it kind of goes back to that. And once you do get to that collegiate level, right, and transitioning into pro ball, what advice can you give collegiate baseball players right now that have a shot at going pro? What advice can you give them as far as, their routine, their mindset, or just any advice that you can relay? If you got guys that are right on the edge of, hey, you got a chance, right? What are some advice that you can give these kids to make that dream of theirs come into reality during that point, because they've done a good job. They've reached that level. They showed a little bit of success at the collegiate, the playing at the collegiate level. Now they're trying to take it a step. What advice can you give those guys?
Find a way to be uncommon at what you do. If you find a way at every part of the game itself to be uncommon, you're going to propel yourself in front of the people you're competing with. And I'm talking about if you're a college baseball player and you're trying to be, you're on the fringe of being a prospect or a professional baseball player, find a way to do whatever you're doing every day better than the guy that's competing against you. Because ultimately, you are competing against other people, but you can only control what you can control. And that's how dedicated you are, how much you learn the game, how much you dedicate yourself to the game physically, how much do you study the game, how smart are you at the game. So how experienced are you at the game? For example, one thing going on, I've coached summer collegiate baseball a few times, and one thing going on right now in the collegiate baseball world in the summer, right? Some of the best prospects go to the Cape, Alaska, Kansas. Me and my brother played in the Valley League in Virginia. I played in the Kansas Jayhawk League. So back then, the best of the best would always go play summer baseball. Nowadays, the good players, they're no longer going and playing summer baseball because their college coaches tell them, "Oh, you played too much," or "Oh, you've thrown too many innings." Well, okay, you might have a point of me having pitched too many innings for the year, or I've had too many at bats and I need a little bit of break. I'm fine with that. But guess what? If I don't keep putting myself in a tougher situation and have experience, the best teacher of life is experience. The best teacher of life is experience. So if I don't have good quality experience, then how am I going to be better than the next guy that did go play collegiate baseball? I was having this conversation the other day with the Seguin River Monsters here locally. The general manager called me, and we're kind of talking right now of me possibly helping them out. And we're having that conversation that nowadays these college summer leagues are getting the back end guys or the guys that never play. I said, so me as a manager in summer baseball or as an assistant coach, if I'm coaching the summer league, why do I want the back end guy?
Exactly.
Why do I want the guy that pitched 5 innings the whole year? Why do I want the guy that had 20 at-bats on my team? If he's not good enough to play on your team during the spring, why is he good enough to play on my loaded, supposedly against other great players in the league? Why is he good enough to play on that team? And now when he comes to me, I don't know what I'm getting. And my college roommate, he coaches in the summer in Ohio, in the Ohio League, and local kid Jimenez went up and played for him last summer. My nephew played for him up in Ohio. He's at Nicholls State, and he I helped him last year put the team together, a little bit over there. And then in the summer, I'm having conversations with him almost on a daily basis, and he goes, "Man, they sent me this kid from so and so university. He's terrible." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's the problem. That instead of sending you, I'd rather you send me your good player for 2 weeks than send me your worst player
For the whole
summer. What is that doing? That's not helping me win." Well, guess what? Some of these guys in summer ball are trying to build their resume. And I was one of those guys. In 2014, I coached summer league in Florida. And when I built the team on, okay, I'm going to put good pieces together to have a good team. So that's what people don't understand, that a lot of these college programs are, yes, if the kid pitched 120 innings or 100 innings, yes, he needs a break. Yes, he doesn't need to pitch the whole summer. I agree with that. But he also at some point in time, he needs to get out and play better baseball and expose himself to scouts and expose himself to other tough players in tough situations with the wood bat and playing every day. So you could see if he's going to be able to handle pro ball. It happened to me, and it really helped me realize, like, okay, this is different playing every day, 4 or 6 times a week. We had off days on Mondays, but that's what some of the advice I would give college guys, like, find a way to be better. And how are you going to do that? By somebody telling you what you do with your own career? Well, guess what? Nobody's telling your college coach what to do with his career or when he played. Nobody told him he couldn't do something. So, and I did it as a ball player, as a professional athlete. And a lot of big league guys, 90% of Major League Baseball players play winter ball. Well, guess why we played winter ball? You would go in to play winter ball to get better, have better experience, make some extra money, and put yourself in front of general managers, in front of assistant GMs that go down there and scouts the winter ball. And you're playing against big league guys. Some of those guys in the winter ball, a lot of teams have guys that are big leaguers. So now you're sizing yourself up against those type of kids, players.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's the one thing that drives me nuts about baseball nowadays, that we're getting that advice from some college programs.
Yeah, and it's crazy to say too, because I've talked to scouts too, and they're like, well, what's going on with this kid? Is he playing summer ball? Well, he's not playing. Well, I need to see how he plays with a wood bat in his hand. If he can hit in the wood bat, then he has a shot. And I mean, it's a totally different ballgame once you have a wood bat in your hand, right? But if he can do it, then he has a greater chance that might be the missing piece of him signing a contract one day.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting process, man. I really do enjoy.
And in the spring, it's the craziest thing. So even now, like, I'm out at, some quality tournaments, and you see, like, kids swinging a wooden bat in an aluminum tournament. I'm like, why would I, as a baseball player, want to take an advantage that everybody else has and swing a wooden bat in an aluminum bat tournament? Well, if there's a college guy there, college guys don't swing wooden bats.
Exactly. And you got to get there first.
So why are you putting a wood bat in your hand? So now you have a disadvantage when you're playing. So now that college guy might take another guy just as good as you, because he saw the guy hit with the aluminum bat and he squared up 5 balls in the gap, and you flew out 3 times in the gap because you had a wooden bat. So for me, that's just mind-boggling that some of these guys do that. Like, the scout that signed me in a pro ball, he's an assistant to the general manager with the Red Sox, Mark Wazinger. He told me a long, long time ago, because he's helped me run some showcase camps on my own with helping high school kids or whatever. And he said, until somebody forces a wooden bat in your hand at a tryout, don't put a wooden bat in your hand. Because now you're exposing what you really can do with that. But if you leave doubt in their mind, they have to take a chance on you to put a wood bat in your hand. They have to take a chance. And what is that chance? Maybe signing you to a contract. So that's the reality of that.
Yeah.
And I said, it's crazy. This summer I coached 3 teams with USA this summer. And on I think I was coaching the 13 and under. 13 and under. They use aluminum bat in international play all the way through 18s. And I had a 13-year-old kid from California swinging a wooden bat. And I asked him, I said, why are you swinging a wooden bat? He goes, I feel more comfortable with a wooden bat. Well, lo and behold, 2 days later, he hasn't squared up a ball yet. He switched to aluminum bat. Nobody told him to, but he switched and he started hitting. And guess what? He realized, like, well, maybe I should have had this the whole time. I'm trying to make a national team. I didn't.
Simple.
Simple,
Keep
man.
it simple, man. Well, Ruben, real quick, so we can kind of wrap it up. You want to talk a little bit about the P5 and how anybody can kind of go into your website and get some more information on you?
I appreciate it. So what I'm doing now, I started my own player development company called Power 5, and it's a baseball and softball player development company. And what I do with that is I help amateur kids and families kind of get to know where they're at with their skill. And if they're good enough, I help them find a home where that fits their ability to play the game. And I've always had this idea. I've had it for about 10 years. And now that I'm not coaching at the collegiate level, that's why I'm doing it now, is to try to help kids out. And I think that over COVID kind of didn't help because a lot of kids weren't playing and tournaments weren't being run and a lot of stuff like that. But in this whole year that almost a year and a half that I've been doing it, I think I'm 16 for 16, and I've helped kids go to some big programs in the Power 5 and a few, to junior colleges, stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing. People are hiring me to come watch their kid play on a weekend, or they're hiring me to come work their kid out and give them my professional evaluation on them.
Good.
So I write a professional report on them, work them out. I video them and I take notes, and then I write a professional evaluation and give it to them. And the parent gets to see, like, okay, my kid is not a Power 5 kid. They're more of a mid-major. And now it gives them a realistic idea of where their kid stands. And if that parent chooses to go with hiring me to help them get to the next level, then they hire me, and I start wheeling and dealing where I think they fit at the collegiate level with the baseball guys and the softball. It doesn't matter. And I've been successful with it, and I'm about to take a big step with that, where I'm going to start gathering the best kids I see at tournaments and forming teams when they're not playing, and touring them through the Power 5 campuses.
Good.
And working them out at those campuses. So I think it's going to be something that's going to grow for me gradually, because obviously everything is a learning process. But people can get a hold of me through my website, just my name, Ruben Felix, or send him an email. You can direct message me on my Twitter handle, which is USA Baseball, and it's 00 at the end. So it's USA Baseball 00.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that my company grows, and I'm hoping that I can help, organizations, teams, or parents, or a child just to get what they want to get out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's important. And guys like you that are doing what you're doing, it's a really cool thing to represent ball players and learn, how it all works and all that good stuff. So anytime I can help you let me know. And I know we just talked about Oscar Suarez.
Yeah, Oscar, man.
He's a good guy, and being an agent can be a very rewarding thing, and a lifetime friendship with ball players, whether they're college guys or just minor league guys starting off. But you actually meet them, when they're amateurs in college or high school.
Yeah, no, I really do appreciate your time, man. I look forward to helping you as far as grow your company as well. I know you're gonna do some great things, man, because you're a real and honest person, and you're a lifer, man. You're a baseball lifer, and lifers, they go a long way. Those true baseball guys, they recognize the real ones, and you're a real one. So I really do appreciate the knowledge that you bring, not only to myself, man, but to this podcast and all the viewers watching.
I appreciate you guys and your crew today.
Yeah, man, we're making it happen over here. All right, Ruben, I appreciate it, man. You go. Best of wishes for you, man. Take care of the family, and until next time.
I appreciate you guys. Anytime you need me again, let me know. Oh, we can make this happen. Hopefully, I don't talk as much.
It's a good thing. All righty.
Okay, perfect. Quick. Yep. Yeah, you controlled it that quick? He was trying to shut me up like, dude, this guy's
That's the whole time.